Hi, everybody. This is Lee, and I'm talking about some of the reasoning behind the Black Lives Matter movement that some people still do not get it. That they say identity politics, they say they're terrorists, a lot of things. And the thing is, if we really cast our mind back into history, Nelson Mandela was called a terrorist by Ronald Reagan, of all people. And we know that he wasn't, that he was a freedom fighter, and that eventually he became head of state and was beloved around the world for his entire history of fighting for freedom for everyone in South Africa from the apartheid system. And so there are people fighting against such a system here in the United States as well. That we do not have official apartheid anymore, that we do not have official slavery anymore. But these institutions do have legacies in the form of our prison industrial complex. And then the segregation that still occurs in various institutions of certain cities, north and south. And so Black Lives Matter has taken note of this. They've taken up the mantle of the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement, saying that the work is not finished, that there's still work to be done. And so we see examples of why this is happening. I mean, they are numerous. It's historical examples. We've got Emmett Till, a young boy who was falsely accused and then mutilated to the point that he wasn't even recognized as human. And we learn only years later that, you know, the story is recanted by the white woman who accused him, who went on to live her life. And that Emmett Till's family had to endure decades of uncertainty while they knew in their hearts that he was not such a boy who would harm someone else. But the true story was not told. And so his mother died, you know, knowing that her son was killed, lynched, basically. And then his name was smeared as if people were trying to justify that killing, saying that he deserved it. And we know for a fact that he did not. Many already knew, but, since there's a recantation of the false testimony, now it is known. And so that's only one story. Amy Goodman did a story on the Groveland Four. There's an article, and I'll post a link in the description. Florida lawmakers apologize to family of Groveland Four, black men falsely accused of rape in 1949, and that some of them were extrajudicially killed, and we know it was a false accusation years later. And we also know that there are many stories that have never been told, that people have gone to their graves with the secrets, the false statements that they made that resulted in lynchings and deaths and burnings and lootings of entire black towns based on false testimony, and that this is historic, and that this is even after the official end of slavery, Jim Crow, slavery by another name, that followed. And so these stories are coming out. We can move further into the future, and where I've done stories about what's happening in Gwinnett County, about the two officers who lied about a police stop and the brutality that ensued at that traffic stop, and how they have been held accountable, and that it's unusual and it stands out that they've been held accountable, even with video that we've seen officers be excused for their behavior, but not this time. And that, again, in Massachusetts, I spoke of the story where over 21,000 drug cases were thrown out because of false testimony, false evidence manufactured in a lab by a couple of chemists who wanted to be stars, and that they were willing to destroy um, thousands of black lives in order to do that. And that's why people say Black Lives Matter, because some people don't understand that they do. And so people have to remind them Black Lives Matter. Also, in Chicago, I can also mention that there are reparations being delivered for victims of police torture, mostly African American men who were tortured into false confession, and that now Chicago is paying reparations to the tune of millions of dollars. And we see various examples with women as well, that there have been women who have been slaughtered in the streets and then brutalized in the streets. We saw the video of the woman in Fort Worth who called the police for assistance because her son had been a victim of a crime, and the police officer arrived and totally ignored the crime against her son, and then just took her and her daughters to prison or to jail. And that was what he considered good police work for that day. So, and it doesn't end there. There's another story with Amy Goodman in Democracy Now! This is Marissa Alexander, who tried to invoke the Stand Your Ground law, as many people often do when it comes to killing of African Americans. I felt threatened, so I shot him. This woman, she was a victim of domestic violence. She fired a warning shot with a gun that was licensed and registered. She even had a restraining order against this person. So her paperwork was in order. Her safety, her concerns about her safety were documented and established. And so she fired the warning shot, and then she was taken to prison and had the maximum mandatory minimum thrown at her. Whereas when George Zimmerman actually killed someone and invoked the Stand Your Ground law, at first he was excused for his behavior. It actually took public outcry for there even to be a charge. And so, again, we say Black Lives Matter, that Marissa Alexander's Black Lives Matters. And I'll post a link in the description to that story as well, the Groveland 4. And then Marissa Alexander as well. And so, I mean, there's some people that will never accept that Black Lives Matter, that they just don't really feel that they do. Or they say, well, they matter, but you know what? It's identity politics, and we really need to focus on economics. So, sorry. But anyway, for those who want to understand, the links are in the description, and you can follow up and maybe get an understanding of the Black Lives Matter movement and what they're trying to do, actually protect Black lives. And the reasoning for that, why it's not only historical, that that work that was done during Jim Crow days to attempt to protect Black lives, that there is still a need to do that. And that these are only some stories that I've told. There are numerous all across the country, and too many to name in one video. But hopefully, again, for those who want to understand, the links are in the description. Good luck.